Hey everyone, welcome to Chapel Done Differently again. So excited to have some of you here, and if you're still at home, we're really thinking about you. And I really want to talk to you some more about what we're going through right now. We're living in tough times. There are so many things that are happening that are making it really hard for us to get through this. Congratulations to those who've been able to make it back to school. You're so lucky. But some of you are still stuck at home, and it can be driving you wild. I mean, it could even be driving you wild if you're not stuck at home. But think about it. You've got family frustrations, you have got things going on at home that might be a little bit disappointing right now. Maybe you're even like a little bit uncertain about what's going to be happening in the future. And I was trying to think about this, but I really can't remember a time in my life where the whole world has been shut down by one circumstance. And you know what? It's tough. It's tough for everyone. Don't feel like you're doing this alone. And the thing is, tough times are part of life. You're going to have some times that are going to be bad. And the cool thing is that eventually this is going to pass. Like, Corona is going to come to an end, hopefully. Well, hopefully. But then you'll have something else in your future that will probably be a tough time that you have to try and get through. Some other negative thing in your life that might be affecting you. And I want you guys to know that there is some good news. That we have hope in God. And this is what I'm hoping that through these videos you'll be able to experience that. Now, there's a guy in the New Testament, his name's Paul, and he pretty much wrote a lot of the New Testament. And if you ever read his story, or if you know his story, you know that he has had some pretty horrific things happening, some pretty tough times. But I really love this one passage where he speaks about his tough times and how he deals with it all. Really take this in, because I think it's some really, really good, inspiring words. So it's found in 2 Corinthians 4 verse 7 to 9, and this is what it says. We now have this light shining in our hearts, but we ourselves are like fragile clay jars containing this great treasure. This makes it clear that our great power is from God, not from ourselves. We are pressed on every side by troubles, but we are not crushed. We are perplexed, but not driven to despair. We are hunted down, but never abandoned by God. We get knocked down, but we are not destroyed. Woo! Yeah, really love those words. Paul experienced the anxiety and stress in his circumstances, but he wasn't defeated by them, which is something that I want you guys to remember. Now, he doesn't diminish or discount his pain. He doesn't make it small. It is quite big. He felt it. He didn't ignore it. It was definitely there. Yet it's the but not part of his words that I really want you to focus on. So I'm going to read it again, and I want you to listen to those words because they're pretty cool. We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed. Perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not abandoned. Struck down, but not destroyed. That's God working in our lives. Paul could face anything because he knew that Jesus was with him and within him. Life is going to be hard, guys. Not going to sugarcoat it. Life is hard. But with Jesus, we are never crushed, never in despair, abandoned, or destroyed. Sometimes our situations can change for the better, and sometimes it can stay the same, or sometimes it can get even worse. But regardless of the situation, we have Jesus, who brings us hope, and he will help you. Have you ever thought, why is there suffering in the world? Or have you ever thought, why did COVID-19 ever happen in the first place? I mean, we've all probably asked those questions. And the question of suffering is a question that people have asked since the beginning of time. Everyone asks these types of questions. In fact, there's a book in the Bible called Job. Some of you might be very familiar with the story, and some of you may not know it at all. But I reckon that book is God's way of saying that these questions are okay to ask. He wants you to ask these questions. Now I'm going to flick over to a YouTube video by a group of guys called the Bible Project, and they tell the Job story pretty well. So we're going to listen in to the way that they tell it, and then I'll see you guys at the end.
There are 3 books in the Bible known as the wisdom literature: Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Job. The first, Proverbs, showed us that God is wise and just.
Yeah, we learned that God has ordered the world so that it's fair. The righteous are rewarded, the wicked are punished. In other words, you get what you deserve.
But then we meet Ecclesiastes, who observes, people don't always get what they deserve.
He said the world isn't always fair, that life is unpredictable and hard to comprehend, just like smoke.
And this makes you wonder, okay, well, is God wise and just?
Exactly. And so it's that question that is being explored in the final book of wisdom, Job.
All right, let's dive in.
So Job begins with a strange story that takes place up in the heavens, which are described something like a heavenly command center. So God is there with these angelic creatures called the sons of God, and they're all there reporting for duty.
And God points out this guy Job, his servant, showing how righteous and good he is.
And then one of these angelic creatures approaches. He's referred to in Hebrew as the Satan.
The Satan? Who is this?
Well, this word is actually a title, which literally means the one who is opposed. So out of this whole crew, he is the one questioning how God is running the world. And he proposes that Job might not actually love God, that he's only a good person because God rewards him. If God were to take away all of the good things he gave to Job, then we would see his true colors.
So he thinks Job is just working the system?
That's exactly right. Maybe he's obeying just to get what he wants.
So God agrees to this experiment and allows the Satan to inflict suffering on Job.
And Job loses everyone and everything that he cares about. It is devastating. And remember, he deserves none of this. God himself said so.
The remarkable thing is that in the midst of all this suffering, Job still praises God.
At least for chapters 1 and 2. But then in chapter 3, we find out how he's really feeling inside. He unleashes this poem that reveals this devastation. It's a long, elaborate curse on the day that he was born.
After this, some of Job's friends come to visit him to offer their help. And all of them are like, Job, you must have done something horribly wrong to deserve this. After all, we know God is just, and we know the world is ordered by God's justice and fairness, so you must be getting what you deserve.
And for the next 34 chapters, the friends and Job go back and forth in very dense Hebrew poetry. His friends keep speculating about why God might have sent such suffering, and they even start making up lists of hypothetical sins that Job must have committed. But after each accusation, Job defends his innocence.
And Job is innocent.
He is. He's also on an emotional roller coaster. At some moments, he's very confident that God is still wise and just.
Yeah, in other moments, he's doubting God's goodness.
He even comes to accuse God of being reckless, unfair, and corrupt. So by the end of the dialogues, Job demands that God come and explain himself in person, and God does so. He comes in the form of a great storm cloud.
Now, God doesn't give Job a direct answer. He doesn't tell Job about the conversation with the Satan.
Yeah, he does something very different. He takes Job on a virtual tour of the universe. He shows Job how grand the world is, and he asks him if he's even capable of running it or understanding it, just for a day. He shows Job how much detail there is in the world, things that we might see every day, but really don't understand at all. But God does. He knows it all intimately. He pays attention to the beauty and operations of the universe in ways that we haven't even imagined and in places that we will never see.
Then to conclude, God shows Job 2 wondrous beasts and brags about how great they are.
Yeah, they are dangerous. I mean, they would kill you without even thinking about it. And God says they're not evil. They're actually a part of his good world.
And then that's it. That's God's whole defense. It's kind of weird. I mean, what was this all about?
It seems to be this. From Job's point of view, it looks like God is not just. But God's perspective is infinitely bigger. He's dynamically interacting with a whole universe of complexity when he makes decisions. And this is what God calls his wisdom.
So Job asking God to defend himself is actually kind of absurd.
He couldn't comprehend this kind of complexity even if he wanted to.
So where does this leave us?
Well, it leaves Job in a place of humility. He never learned why he suffered, and yet he's able to live in peace and in the fear of the Lord.
But that's not where the book ends, because after this, God restores to Job double everything he had lost. And this, again, is surprising. I mean, is this a reward? Is God saying, "Congratulations, Job, you passed this elaborate test"?
No, I mean, the whole book just made the point that Job losing everything was not a punishment, and so now getting it back isn't a reward.
So why does he get it back?
Well, apparently, God, in his wisdom, decided to give Job a gift. We don't know why. But what we do know is that Job is now the kind of person who, no matter what comes, good or bad, he can trust God's wisdom.
And that's the book of Job.
So, all through it all 42 chapters of this book, Job never loses his faith in God. It might waver a little bit here and there, but he never loses it. And he asks God questions, and he had a lot of questions. I mean, I would if I lost everything. When you go through tough times, you might have questions for God too. And I want you guys to know that that is okay. It's perfectly normal to have questions. So what I would love you to do is not be afraid of thinking those things. Ask God those questions. Talk about them with your family and friends. Take time to wrestle with them and go through them, because it does help you to find your hope and peace in tough situations. Now I'm going to wrap it up pretty soon here. So there's 3 more things that I want you to consider. So hang in there for a little bit longer, guys. Now, number 1, God spoke to Job through the storm. And one of the things that he said was, God is God. He was telling Job that he is sovereign. He is bigger than the situation. Now, God is bigger than the coronavirus. He's bigger than the quarantine life that you're living right now. He's bigger than any circumstance that you are facing. He's in control. He's on the throne. God is God. Number 2 is, although Job was horrified by the situation, he couldn't understand what was going on. He was eventually able to move on. Big thing. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic will eventually pass. Pain and suffering will not last forever. And it's easy to think that the tough times you face will never end. Sometimes you feel like you're in a dark place and it's just gonna last like that for forever. But it's not. Eventually, you'll be able to move on. There's always going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. Take Job's life, for example. There is a way to move on, even though you've had tough times. And my last point, number 3. The book of Job ends as God restores Job and gives him above and beyond whatever he had to begin with. Now, God will often bring good in difficult circumstances. Tongue twister. Your situation might not turn out as rosy as Job's. It could stay the same, or it could be bad, which is not awesome, but it's our job to look for the good in those bad situations. There's always something good present. It could be a life lesson. Maybe it's an opportunity to grow your personality. It's actually our job to find the good in those bad situations, because God is providing something good and you will find it. So, We're going to pause the video now. In a moment there's going to be some questions that are going to pop up. But once you've done, I want you to pray about it. Pray into your situation. Pray for those tough times. Maybe you need to just wrestle with the things that you're struggling with right now. So, thank you for listening. Here are the questions. Have a great day. Bye.